Hello everybody! Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 39, Adding Animation to Sprites. In this most recent set of videos, we learned about animations, displaying a sequence of images in rapid succession to create the illusion of movement. In this video, we'll learn how to take the animation class that we created in the previous video and integrate that with the sprite class, which will enable us to have animated sprites in our games. So, we're going to add something to the Starfish Collector game. First, let's go ahead and open up our development environment. So here, I've opened up IntelliJ, and we had created the animation class recently. Next, we're going to turn our attention to the sprite class. So let's go to the top of the class. Just like we add a physics object, we're going to add an animation object. And similar to the physics class, it's optional as to whether or not we add an animation. I mean, we can still fall back on the textures that we've previously been using, but if an animation is set, then we'll use that animation for the sprites in our game. So in the sprite class, first we add a public animation object called animation. And in the constructor, we'll default set animation to null. And just like we have a set physics method, we will also create a set animation method. And so public void set animation, we'll take an animation named anim, and we'll say animation equals anim. All right, so that sets the animation. Now, let's go down to the update method. All right, update is where we can check if we've set an object. So like before, we've checked to see if we've set physics. Here, we'll say if animation is not null, meaning we've set an animation. So if animation not equal to null, first we'll update the animation. So animation.update dt. Remember that chooses to increment the elapsed time. And then we'll set the texture of this object to whatever the current texture specified by the animation is. So here we'll say texture is equal to animation.getCurrentTexture. All right, and that's about all we need to do. So let's go ahead and let's go back to Starfish Collector, the game that we've been working on. Gradually building our way up to Starfish Collector 2.0. Let's go ahead and give this game a run to remind ourselves of what it looks like. All right, it's compiling. All right, and so far, nothing really uses an animation. Now, what I'd like to do is go ahead and add a fish animation into our game. So I've added some things into the image folder. In particular, I have this sprite sheet. So this sprite sheet is one column and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. And if you look closely at this, you'll notice that in each frame of the animation, right, you see this goldfish, or I guess a clownfish. The tail is moving slightly back and forth, and the flippers on the side move slightly forwards and backwards and well. So it'll look like it's, swimming around. So let's go to Starfish Collector, and let's create a sprite called fish. In the initialize method, maybe we'll put this on top somewhere. So we'll add this towards the end of the initialize function. Now let's say fish equals a new sprite. And let's say fish, where do we want to put the fish? Maybe we'll say set position. We'll set the position maybe on the lower left. So let's set the position to have coordinates. Remember, this is the center. Maybe 100, 400. And now we need to create an animation. So we could do this on 2 lines. Maybe I'll do that so the code's more readable. We'll say animation fish anim. equals a new animation. And here, right, we have a lot of parameters. First, we need the image file name. So this is in our images directory. And as always, the code and these new images will be uploaded to GitHub, link in the description. So images/fish.png. Then I need the number of rows and columns. So this has 8 rows and 1 column. The frame duration, maybe it'll be a tenth of a second. And do I want it to loop? Yes. So that will be set to true. Now I'll say fish.setAnimation to be fish anim. The texture, we don't need to set because the animation will be used for the texture. And let's see, we need to add it to the main group so it gets rendered along with everything else. So group.addFish. Now hopefully everything's going to go correctly here. Let's go ahead and run our game. Hopefully we'll see a swimming fish. I do not see a swimming fish anywhere. That is strange. Let's take a look at the code here. All right, so I think I know what's wrong here. When we set the animation, right, we don't actually set the size of a sprite. If we go back to the sprite class and look at the code, when is the size set? Right, the size is set when we load a texture. Right, so it would be set here and here. So what we should really do is add a little bit more code to the sprite class. Right, in the set animation, it would also be good to set the width and the height, and also the boundary while we're at it. So what we'll do here is in the set animation code, we're going to add a few more lines here. Right, so in this case, it doesn't matter which frame of the animation we use. So maybe we'll use anim.getCurrentTexture region width, and then the same thing here, anim.getCurrentTexture region height. So we'll also need to set the width and the height. Before, the width and the height were defaulting to 0, so there was a fish there, a fish of width and height 0. Let's go ahead and give that a try. So again, adding that code to set animation, let's go ahead and try running Starfish Collector again. So we're going to go ahead and run. And hopefully now we'll see our swimming fishy friend. And sure enough, there's our fish. Keeps on swimming. All right. It is kind of strange to see to see the fish swimming in place. So we could do all sorts of other things, right? We could actually take that fish and we could move it across the screen. We could, increment the X coordinate or the Y coordinate, all sorts of fun things. In fact, if we wanted to, we could even replace the turtle with a fish. Right? So we've set up this animation here. We could say, instead of this code right here, I'll temporarily comment this out. Right? We could say turtle set animation, and we could use the fish anim for that. Right? Nothing about Starfish Collector says that we need to have a turtle collecting the starfish. We could have a clownfish collect the starfish. Then sure enough, right, now we've got a little fishy running around collecting those stars. It's actually incredibly cute. All right, and this is how we add animations to our game. The one other bit of code I think I do want to add to this is the ability to stop or pause the animation. Right? It is a little bit strange when the fish is not moving for the animation to continue. So what we'll do here is in the animation class, we'll add one more thing. Right? Let's add the ability to pause an animation. Let's say public boolean paused. By default, we'll say the game or the animation is not paused. So we'll say paused equals false. Right, in both these cases. This dot paused equals false. I don't really need this dot pause. I'm just copying this style here. And then we'll say in the update method, if the animation is currently paused, and then we don't want to do any of this code, so we'll say if paused, then return. And that just exits this method early. And to see how we might use something like that, right, so the turtle's animation is now the fish, right, we could say, right down here, right, if the turtle physics speed is greater than 0, we do that. We could also say, we could set this to, say, turtle.animation.paused equals false, and then else the turtle animation paused equals true. And so if you want to turn on and off an animation, right, in this case, if the speed is greater than 0, then we're not going to pause the animation. Otherwise, the speed is equal to 0, the creature's not moving, so we'd want to pause the animation. Let's go ahead and see how that works. All right, so again, fish doesn't look like it's doing anything. But as I press an arrow key and it moves, while it's moving, we see those little flippers flip-flopping, and we see that tail going back and forth. But when we stop, the fish also stops animating. All right, so that's a nice little robust bit of code we can add there. Very good. All right, and that's how we add animation to a game. Now in this case, I'm going to change the turtle back to a turtle, so I'm going to remove this code that we added. But just in case you want to pause your own animations, that's how you would do it. And I'm going to remove that bit of code. So now I'm just going to have a fish swimming in the corner, just part of the scenery, hanging out. All right, and that's how we add animations to sprites and how we add animated sprites to a game. Thanks for watching.